Our story begins with a lucky break. In a small village in Indonesia, a man named Kosim finds some gemstones in a river and celebrates his good luck. Now he can give a better life to his wife Laris. With a baby on the way, the happy couple moves into their comfy new home. Dorman, the local shaman, is also celebrating a discovery. He has located the resting place of his grandfather, Albert Dominique. He takes his skull home to perform a bizarre ritual, and a few banknotes appear inside a jar. Dorman rejoices to see it worked, but reaching further, he finds out the rest of it is just a bunch of leaves. A creepy voice says he can still have prosperity, but only if he gives life back to his grandpa. Any reasonable person would say no to that odd request, but let's be honest, does Dorman look like a reasonable person to you? A few days later, a couple of guys are going all over the village with a public announcement about the eclipse tonight. Women and children are to stay safe at home, as it is believed that demons can visit Earth during such events. Not too worried about that, Laris has been running some errands to get everything ready for her baby. The midwife says she can tell it's a boy from the shape of her belly. She hopes he'll be handsome like his dad and lucky like his mom. Kind of insulting, but Laris doesn't even pay attention. When she's walking home, a large dog comes after her, trying to run away. She gets lost in the woods and Dorman shows up. She starts to cry and begs him not to hurt her, but he's already gone now. She passes out for a moment and wakes up with horrific noises around her. Then, the ground opens beneath her and she's sucked into the hole. After a couple of hours waiting for her to get home, Kosim organizes a search party. Laris is at the same spot as she was before, but in another version of reality. Albert Dominique comes as an apparition and attacks her. That's when Kosim hears her screaming. He follows the sound and finds her lying on the ground in complete shock. Some people help carry her home. Kosim tells his men nobody can know what happened to his wife. The midwife calls him into the bedroom because the baby is coming. But what comes out of Laris doesn't look much like a baby. A young midwife apprentice named Didi is asked to put that thing out of everyone's sight for the moment. She takes it to the back, and as soon as she leaves, moonlight hits the basket. The blanket is yanked out by an invisible force, and a creepy little hand is raised. When Didi gets back, the basket is empty and the baby is crying in a corner of the room. Without a pause to wonder how the hell a newborn had covered that distance, Didi comes closer and picks him up. She's horrified to see the baby has an old man's face. He attacks Didi and bites her neck. Kosim finds her a few minutes later. He pays the midwife to shush about Didi and get rid of her body. Then he starts searching for his son. In the middle of the tall grass, he finds what looks like a regular baby now, so he takes him home to Laris and doesn't tell her anything. She decides to name the baby Didi. The midwife can barely hide her horror, but Kosim gives her that look which says, "Keep your mouth shut." 7 years later, Kosim and Laris are having people over for Didi's circumcision ceremony. Kosim is running for office now and his opponent is a man named Soleh, who was also invited. Kosim says they don't need to be enemies. They could even work together if Soleh were more open to new ideas. Soleh says he'll listen to whatever is good for the village. A bit upset at the implication of the comment, Kosim points out he was born and raised in the village, while Soleh is an outsider. Both wives are eager to cut it out, and Laris tells her husband to go check on his son. The other kids are carrying Didi through the festivities and the boy looks very happy, but his smile vanishes when he spots a particular party crasher. Dorman is touching a wristband in a weird way, and now Didi's eyes are very different. The performers around him seem to lose control of their own actions and start to do terrible things to themselves. Everyone in the audience panics, and Didi is very amused. So does Dorman. At the ceremony, the doctor is shocked to see that his knife got somehow bent in the middle. Someone makes a joke about it, saying the boy must be too hard to cut. While most guests laugh at it, the parents are not pleased, and the boy storms out of the room. The doctor tells Kosim that there must be something wrong with the boy. Speaking to him privately, Kosim tells him to shut up and stop spreading lies about his boy. Then he has him thrown out. But look who else wants to have a word, the midwife. You might think she's about to crumble under the weight of such a nasty secret, right? Wrong. This is just the perfect moment to remind Kosim of her valuable silence, where some see crisis, some see opportunities. At night, the photographer is terrified to see the image of an old man sitting where Didi should be, and then the light switch mysteriously stops working. The photographs fall all at once, and the old man growls from one of them. Then there's a flash of light, and a new photographer is in the room to keep him company. How thoughtful. The poor man manages to escape that place, but it doesn't mean he left the danger in there. Terrorized by a ghastly hitchhiker, he crashes the motorcycle before getting hit by a truck. On the next day, the town kids are mocking Didi about what happened at the ceremony. They call him Demon Child and threaten to throw him in the river. But Soleh's daughter Rini shows up with a stick, and are suddenly not so brave. Didi asks her if it's too weird that he's not circumcised, and the girl simply says that neither is she, so no worries. Then, a boy named Ahmad comes back with a rope and pretends it's a snake to scare Rini. She falls into the water and gets dragged by the strong current, but Didi saves her. Later that day, Dorman is discussing what to do about a ritual site that has been shut down when a splitting headache forces him to interrupt the meeting. Once he's alone, Albert's voice talks to him again. He urges his grandson to take action and protect Didi because he needs the child. Meanwhile, Soleh is talking to Mr. Yasa about the same ritual sites. The man says people perform offerings there to get rich fast or gain some kind of power. That's bad for the village in many ways and only empowers evil shamans like Dorman. When the children arrive, Soleh can see their clothes are soaking wet, so they tell him what happened. Grateful to Didi for having saved Rini, the family invites him to share some of their food. They even ask him to say the prayers, but the boy says he doesn't know the words. One of the adults says he can repeat after him, but Didi just gets up and leaves. On his way home, he sees Ahmad near the river. He lures him into an abandoned place, but then it's Albert who's waiting to meet him with a huge scare. While Ahmad runs out in terror, a carriage driver nearby seems to lose control of the horse, and that results in an ugly accident. Now Didi is getting home. He tells his mom he's not hungry and wants to play in the yard. Soon after, Rini arrives with her mother Uni. They're here to return Didi's clothes, and Loris says Rini can go to the yard to play with him. Uni invites Loris to a reading of the Quran. Just like her son at lunch, Loris is embarrassed to admit she can't really read it. Uni says they can learn together, and Loris accepts the offer. As the two women are about to leave, Kosim arrives in a bad mood. He's telling someone to pay off Ahmad's parents to shut them up. Loris is upset to learn the boy was hit by one of their carriages. She wants to take the money to herself so she can see how Ahmad's doing. Uni says she can come too, but Kosim tells her to mind her own business. He thinks she only wants to bring the hot gossip home so her husband can use it in the campaign. Uni ignores all that and comes along anyway. Ahmad's mother is very sad, but grateful for the present. When Loris gets closer to the boy, he starts to cry and screams that her son is a demon. His mother thinks it must be the fever talking, but deep down, Loris knows the truth. At night, she tries to talk about the accident with Didi, but Kosim gets angry at her and says she should defend her son. But his bad mood is not only because of Didi. People in some areas of the village have been loyal to Soleh for a long time, and it looks like nothing can change their vote. Kosim tells his men to send money to these people. Loyalty and principles are no match for cash. That's when Dorman comes to his door to offer some help with the elections. Soleh has been talking to the villagers about sin and stuff like that, which can be bad business for a shaman. Kosim is all ears until he realizes Dorman is planning to eliminate the competition in a more permanent way. He declines the offer, saying he'd rather win his way. On his way out, Dorman overhears a man talking about the accident and the rumors that Didi was involved. Apparently, the whole town is getting wise to Demon Didi now, and Kosim is not happy about it. The man says he should open his eyes before it's too late. Loris is also worried about that. Earlier that day, Uni gave her a special prayer to read aloud near the boy. No shame in being possessed, she said. Now we just have to get it fixed. But when she comes into his room to read the prayer, he's all sweet now and even shows her a drawing of their happy family. She later tells Kosim that he was right. She was being unfair to her own little boy. Pleased to hear that, Kosim starts to get romantic. Loris takes the opportunity to tell him she is pregnant again. A week later, both candidates increase their campaign efforts. Kosim parades all over the town with his perfectly normal kid, while Soleh makes a speech to the villagers. Their wives are reading the Quran with a group of women, and their children are playing together. Didi and Rini promise they'll still be friends no matter who wins, but then she starts asking about the baby. his future brother or sister. Didi didn't know about that and doesn't sound very excited to share his mom. He runs home and gives Laris an accusatory look before going to his room and slamming the door shut. In the evening, Mr. Yesid is having dinner at Soleh's and ends up saving his life. The food was poisoned by a spell cast by Dorman. Luckily, Yesa is actually his former colleague in occult studies and he knows what to do. A counterspell turns the magic against the shaman instead. Yasa says they must be careful from now on. And he's right, because Dorman doesn't take it too well and proceeds to cast an even worse curse on Soleh. Didi is sent to his house in the middle of the night. Rainey wakes up, but her parents are still asleep, and the demon is ready to attack them, just like when he was a baby. Didi has Albert Dominique's head instead of his own. Instead of running in terror, Rainey touches his hand and calls his name. The transformation is reversed, and Didi is just a little boy again. As he runs back to his home, Dorman is furious to see his voodoo fail. Rainey tries to explain to the adults what she saw. Understandably, she fears they won't believe her. That's not the case at all, because Mr. Yesa is also there. He knows exactly what's going on, and even calls the old man by name. Albert Dominique used to own all that land many decades ago. He was a cruel tyrant who enslaved the native people and took advantage of their girls. Anyone who dared to oppose him was tortured or eliminated. But one day, the villagers finally had enough and got rid of him using his own methods. Mr. Yesa says the only man who can summon Albert Dominique's spirit into the body of an innocent child is Dorman. Back when they studied together, Yasa decided to part ways with him when his quest for power became an obsession. That happened when Dorman found out he was Dominique's descendant. His grandma was one of those village girls. Finally, Yesa admits he only came to this village to stop Dorman. In the morning, Laris is surprised to see Didi at home. He says he's not at school because he must protect her. Someone doesn't want her to have another baby. Suspecting that this person might be Didi himself, she wants to know how come he knows about that. He says he heard it from her belly. At the front porch, Kosim is talking about the elections with his staff. They tell him that a portion of Soleh's supporters are willing to flip for a certain amount of money. Kosim celebrates the good news and the fact he was right about buying votes. In the backyard, Laris is putting clothes up to dry when Didi starts screaming. He has fallen into the well and needs her help. But when she offers her hand to pull him up, she sees Albert Dominique's head in her son's body. The demon pulls her inside and hops out with an evil laughter. Because of the current studies with Uni, Laris now knows a few prayers by heart. When she starts, Didi covers his ears and screams very loudly, alerting Kosim. For the first time, he gets there in time to see Didi's eyes going blank, and then he jumps into the well to save his wife. When she recovers, she tells Kosim that their son tried to kill her. She cries and begs him to open his eyes once and for all. That thing is not really her son. This could be their own fault, and they must repent to make it right again. Later on, one of Kosim's employees delivers that money they were discussing before, except that he's not giving it to the voters at all. He is in cahoots with the midwife, and she is running out of ways to shake down the boss. The whole thing was a lie. The employee says she is needed at the house as well, because Laris had an accident and wants to have the baby checked. He takes her there on his bike, but they never make it to the house. The employee is attacked by the demon in the middle of the road. The midwife manages to run away and hide in a public restroom, but he finds her there too. At the same time, Kosim is sending a search party to find his son. He hasn't been seen since the well incident. The men start looking everywhere until some of them see the boy, but they also see what he had done to the midwife and what happened to his eyes. They start screaming "demon child" and sound the alarm. Uni is still at Laura's home when Soleh hears the alarm, so he decides to go and pick her up. He tells Rini to stay home and keep the door locked no matter what, but he doesn't make it very far at all. Didi is waiting for him right outside. Rainey is watching through the keyhole as the boy says he's hurt and needs help. She knows that's not her friend. The demon is trying to trick her father. She starts to scream, but no one listens, so she decides to say a prayer. That makes the door open just in time. Didi has gone full demon now, and he's attacking Soleh. Once again, Rainey's touch breaks the spell. Soleh takes the unconscious boy to his parents, and Mr. Yeza performs an exorcism. Kosim and Loris are relieved to have their kid back, while Dorman has to face Albert Dominique's rage at losing the vessel. Humbled by the experience, Kosim gathers the villagers to say he is stepping down. Soleh deserves to win because he will be a better ruler. A few weeks later, Didi is finally circumcised like the other boys. Everything is fine again, and it stays that way for many months. Now Loris is about to give birth again. Kosim and Didi are waiting in the living room, and they're relieved to hear the baby crying. But then, the new midwife starts to scream in horror. Kosim opens the door and her body falls through. Loris walks out of the room completely transformed and holding her new baby. A demon voice comes out of her mouth and says Kosim hasn't paid his debt yet. Only now we understand his first lucky break and what kind of nasty deal he had done for all his wealth and power. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2023 movie Bayi Ajaib by Falcon Pictures, starring Vino Bastian and Sarah Fajura. So, what do you think will happen now? Once cursed, cursed forever. Let us know in the comments below with #CinemaRecap. Until next time.